Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Munciana Courtside, Season 7, Show 13. I got to be really honest.
Season finale.
Yeah, season finale, and in total transparency and honesty, I wasn't sure we'd make it here. So, congratulations, old buddy, and Randy Gardner, Mike Lingenfelter. Let's get it going, big fella.
All right. Well, we haven't done the last couple of years the final show, so this year we decided we'd get back on it. And 1A state finals was number 3 Pioneer, and they took down Lagodi number 2 in 4 sets.
We thought that this coming into it would be a war, and it was. Great match. I saw Rod Nyes and his squad out in the parking lot since everybody had to leave the building. There was no celebrating in the building, so everybody went out and social distanced in the parking lot. I went up and gave Rod a social distance hug, and I was really excited for him. Just Lagodi, great team, and whoever wins that, you're excited for him. Rod has been at this for a long, long time, and been really close several times. Both of these teams battling for their first state title, and you hate to see either one lose because Lagodi was good all year long, and let's face it, Lagodi's good every year. Every year they're in the hunt, and one of the real premier programs in the state of Indiana. Pioneer, same way. And we talked coming into that game that Rod's passion and energy and competitive spirit would be the drive, and the folks doing the TV for the 1A said that was a big deal for them. It was calm, but you could tell it was a competitive crew.
Yep. And then you were there. You watched Haley Crook. We talked about her being a big role for those guys.
Well, we thought
22
going in,
kills, 27 at digs.
We thought going in that Haley Cripe would be the difference maker, and when you go 22 kills, 27 digs, I mean that's as different as you can make it. And she was really the catalyst for success for that squad, and she was the difference maker. I mean, every one of these games, as we go down through it, you're going to see that every game had a star. And whether that was a star that we picked out or an X factor, it depends. But somebody's got to rise. And Cripe did exactly what was expected of her. And the best athlete on the floor at that point dominates. And so, great win for them. Jalen Walker is the Middle Attitude Award winner. And people don't realize how big a deal that is.
Yeah.
And I said it on the air during the 3A and 4A matches. It is a tremendous honor. One of the real treasures of Indiana high school athletics, that award really just it embodies everything that's special about high school sports, and it's just as much about citizenship and camaraderie and character as it is academics and athletics. And so, to the Lagodis of the world, I mean, great year for those guys. Pioneer, great finish. Jalen Walker may walk away with the biggest award of the night, but that's a great season, a great finish to 1A, and a great match.
Yep. 2A was the quickest game, and it took a little bit. Swallowed my pride there a little bit. Bar Reef sweeps Wapahani, number 1 versus number 3.
My dad always told me you dance with who you came with, and that was why I had to pick Wapahani. I'm never going to pick against him. It's too much history, too much of my soul is sewn into that school. But I will be honest, Bar Reef came out and just took him to the woodshed. Amber DeCourcy and the gang, Amber did a great job coaching it. That was as fast a team as I've seen in a long, long time. Definitely a 2A. As fast a 2A's team as I've seen maybe since those old Wapahani teams in early 2000s. Their transition game was incredibly fast. Their defensive transition game was on spot. It was just on point the whole night. And Anna Belangi was the best player in the game. She scored in the middle of the court. She scored on the pins, and she scored at will. And she, I thought Belangi and the service pressure were really, really extraordinary. And the other thing that stood out to me in this game was the preparation that DeCourcy had gone through. Her team was incredibly prepared. They knew what to expect, and they jumped on a Wapahani team that we said was really going to be hampered firepower-wise. They were missing some players that really could add a little more punch. I don't think it would have mattered because it wasn't the firepower that broke them. it was the serve receive that ended up breaking Wapahani. And Bar Reeve was the better team. Great little team. Michaela Graver from Bar Reeve caps off a perfect day for them. You know, when you can win the championship and also get the mental attitude award winner, that's a big day. So, you know, Wapahani, congrats. You move up to 3A now, so things are going to get a little interesting for those guys. Bar Reeve, fifth state title, I believe you said.
So third straight.
Third,
first and 2A.
Third state title, and you know, that's a sweet one. And the Courtside gang are building a great program, and you know, they may be right back in this thing. And great team. Congrats to both squads.
Yep. And then 3A, we'll talk about DeWinger, was on the brink. You know,
I don't know what's on the other side of brink.
Yeah.
There's brink, and then there's something right on
over
top.
Hudson sticks out a paw over there accidentally, digs that one ball up, and they win that rally to.
Yeah, she went with the hitchhiker dig on that ball. You know.
And I even asked her. She said, I misread it, went off to the side, and just stuck a hand out there and got lucky and went to target.
Well, you know, the really interesting thing about this matchup, and I did this in TV, and DeWinger, Brebeuf dominated sets 1 and 2. The scores aren't even indicative of how dominant Brebeuf was. Dominance in the sense that their serve-pass game was absolutely spectacular. You know, the first 2 sets, Brebeuf's serve-pass game was only surpassed by Yorktown. That's it. They were the best in the business at that point. And Robinson and Siegel are bombing on the pins. And let's be honest, Winger had no answers other than Hudson. Mm-hmm. You know, it wasn't until the 4th set that a middle got a kill for Dwinger.
Correct.
But after that point, you know, Hudson's least effective set in the match was the 4th set.
And their best set.
She had 6 kills in one single rotation in the front row earlier in the night. She had 6 kills in the entire set in set 4, and set 4 was the biggest win of the night for them. They dominated set 4 and won by 10 points. But what I guess I'm getting at is Dwinger became really dangerous when they mixed up the offense and everybody got involved. But, you know, don't downplay Hudson. You know, 33 kills, 5-match record for the state championships. She was dominant, and she really did a wonderful job in that match. And so you look at it, Timmy Hauser gets his first win. Kat Hawes will be back.
Yeah.
You know, I think
maybe
next year. That Brebeuf team is young and very talented. They, I believe, just got to the point where they were playing not to lose. And just that little bit of competitive juice cost them, because they backed down just a little bit and got a little safe. And you could see hitters trying to steer balls instead of wail, and servers trying to guide balls instead of just going at it competitively. And I think their effort then became just trying not to lose versus trying to win. And you can't play that way, and Brebeuf learned that, and I think it's a great lesson, and those kids will all be back. Greer Frazier, you know, wins it, and, you know, so Brebeuf gets something out of that night. You lose the state championship, you win a mental attitude award, and it's kind of a mix, because it's you take great pride in the mental attitude, but no, you got to love what went down there, and both those teams are going to be good again next year.
Correct. And then we're going to look at the grand finale, 4A.
Not quite the sweep that you called for. The crowd at the Mouse. Yeah, he did receive a gift card from Yorktown Volleyball to the Mouse.
A little tiger paw right there.
He did call for the sweep. Didn't quite happen. Munster came out and competed their butts off. You know, Yorktown wasn't bad in that first set. I said even on the air, Munster had to be allowed to come back down to their level. You know, Brett Bowden's squad came out ready to play. Mm-hmm. And really kind of took it to Yorktown in the first set. Not that Yorktown was bad. Munster was that good. But Yorktown stayed at that same level, and Munster dropped off a little bit. A couple more service ball handling errors, a couple more attacking errors. And that's what Yorktown does to you. Yorktown forces you to have to be perfect to beat them, because they're not going to make any mistakes. And that's what happened on this night. You know, Munster would just kind of crumbled a little bit under the relentless pressure that Yorktown puts on you by just keeping balls in play. You know, in volleyball we call them cooperative drills, where one side is trying to make sure that they keep the ball in play and they hit it to the other side, and they're trying to do the same. Yorktown is that team. Yorktown just kept ball after ball after ball after ball in play and was willing to play brutally long rallies, and Munster kind of broke on some of those rallies. Not enough ball handlers, not enough experience. And Yorktown's really their experience too. Stinson and Morey just dominated that match. And you're looking at Ellie Stinson with 31 digs, Morey with 29 digs. You know, Stinson 12 kills, 31 digs, and it doesn't quite tell the story of the night.
Yeah.
There was probably 30 times in that match where Stinson handled 2 of the 3 contacts. And that young lady is awfully good. And for her to handle 2 of the 3, you're probably not going to win.
Yep.
And so on a night where she gets 31 digs and it seemed like she had 131, if you asked Brett Bowden, Morey and Stinson, he would have probably told you they dug 100 balls. But this Munster team, you know, only really loses a couple kids. One is Haile Kaim, who won the Mental Attitude Award, and maybe the best overall blocker in the event. But they got Melby back. They've got some kids coming back. You know, I thought they were the only school that could go bro to bro with Yorktown. You know, I'm looking at, you know, you're looking at Morton, who is going to Auburn, and Auburn's going to get a good one. But Morton and Melby and Wallace all come back.
Wallace was my surprise. I really enjoyed watching her.
Well, they had no answer for Wallace early.
That right to right shot.
She was swinging, you know, cross court from the right side to the right corner, and they were very deep and well placed shots. And you know, Wallace cooled down a little later, and a part of it was he couldn't get her the ball as much because passing broke a little. But that Munster squad is a really gifted squad. They just ran into a buzzsaw. And Yorktown just, you know, I think Steph Bloom's best coaching job, you know, navigating all of COVID, navigating a new squad, really an offensively challenged squad to an extent. Akins came on and was great in the finals. Judge came on late in the match. The last couple of sets was really good. Dunsmore proved that she is a legitimate middle blocker at the college level. And, you know, you take those guys and combine them with, I got to say, the best ball control in the country.
Yeah.
And you got a pretty good recipe for victory. Yorktown goes undefeated, wins in 4. You called it from the start of the season. We both thought they were the best team in the state.
We both thought they'd be there, yeah, no doubt.
But Yorktown, undefeated, goes all the way through, and the only thing is you got your gift card. Didn't quite get the sweep because the Munster team really was what we said all year long. The North was better than what people thought.
Correct.
And that little quad of teams up in that area was really good. But nothing to be ashamed of. Munster, great year. You'll be back. Yorktown, what can I say? One of the best years in the history of high school volleyball.
Yeah, and the thing I really liked was, like you talked about, Ellie Stinson, 12 kills. She was a team high. So it just shows literally all those guys had 9, 10, you know, 11 kills. Probably.
And Emily Hill was, you know,
she had
Star is Born.
Yeah.
No, a Star is Born.
Yeah.
That kid dished the rock, and she spread the offense, and she scored when they needed her to score. She blocked balls. You know, like I said on the show the other night, she was the most improved player in the state of Indiana. And, you know, Hill's back.
Yeah.
You know, so everybody's looking, saying, well, Stinson and Morey are gone. We'll talk about it in a bit. You know, Yorktown doesn't rebuild; they reload. Mm-hmm. And Coach Bloom would never want me to say that, but it's 100% true.
Yep.
Every year, everybody looks at them and goes, "Well, they lost so and so and so and so," and all they do the next year is go to the brink. They either get beat by whoever wins the championship or they win it. That's what they do.
Yeah, and that's 100% it. You talked about with Hill. I watched her that first game, and I told you, I said, she's very functional. She's going to do a decent job. She just can't screw it up. And she didn't screw it up. She actually was very impressive.
She was a star on the biggest stage.
Very impressive.
She was a star on the biggest stage. Great year. Congrats, Yorktown. Congrats, Munster.
Questions? Big Joshua is back in the studio.
2 questions. You guys almost answered one of them, so I'm going to tweak it a little bit.
We almost answer every question.
Coming in from Khaki. She was just asking.
Khaki Guerrero?
Yeah. She was asking if there was, if you guys thought there was any players that made a name for themselves. You guys just listed off a few. So I'm going to say, who do you think rose their stock the biggest of newbies? if you had to pick one?
Well, I love Khaki Gerard, so it's an interesting question. I think that from the tournament, who grew?
Yeah.
Wallace, I thought, from Munster showed. I knew what Melby could do. Wallace shocked me a little. Um, I believe that Emily Hill from Yorktown grew her stock immensely. I think that the Zimmerman kid at Dwinger upgraded her stock tremendously. I thought Brebeuf probably more than any single team had kids. The Seaman kid exploded potentially. Sydney Robinson's a real deal. High flyer. Siegel is a real deal. We didn't know about those guys. Gaddis, the setter, very, very good. And I'll tell you, Lola Schumacher may have been one of the biggest surprises. As a team, I thought Brebeuf was the biggest surprise. I knew going in that Hudson was going to get hers. And I knew that Stinson was going to be great. And I knew Morey was going to be good. Melby and Morton, I loved them. Wallace, I didn't know. Surprised me.
Yep, they were surprised.
Yeah.
Crape was one I thought from Pioneer. We talked about. I just watched the last couple of weeks.
Yep.
Otherwise, I didn't know her. And one I thought was Judge being in a huge role for Yorktown to be a big offensive piece to the puzzle.
Yeah.
Really being still a young kid for the most part.
Well, there was a lot of surprises because you didn't get to see many teams this year because of COVID. But that stage always builds certain kids, like the Belangi kid. She's a Circle City kid, but Belangi at Bar Reeve I thought was as good as anybody. Moved around. She did the same thing to Wapahani that how Martina anchored that Cowan team last year. But I think there's several good ones. I did think, though, as a whole, the team that really surprised me the most with young talent may have been Brebeuf. Good question.
Yep.
Second question coming in from an official, Sean Thayer. Thoughts on the officiating and line judging for the state championships
I
this year?
thought the officiating was the best it's ever been. There's a call here and there. I think there was maybe a blown call or two in the 2A that I thought you could have called it. There was a kind of a pseudo block and double touch at the net, which is always a tough call. And there was hands were called pretty tight. When you got those two guys on the lines that you had on the lines, and Maddie and the gang, I thought it was the best officiated state championship I had ever seen. And the lines crew, even when we were showing replays, I had the benefit of looking at things in slow motion repeatedly, and there were things I couldn't tell one way or the other, but I thought those guys were spot on. And when an official walks into the arena and walks out and no one knows what he looks like or what he was about, then it was a great match. The focus was on the kids. I thought the officials did a great job. And while you're on it, kudos to IHSAA. I mean, they could have folded the tent easily or could change the seasons easily. And then if we had changed the season like Illinois did, now you got kids trying to balance club and high school or just not doing one or the other. And our guys didn't do that, and kudos to the High School Athletic Association for just putting their heads down and barreling through it. It was a good event. It was obvious when you physically looked, you didn't see people, but you still saw the same energy, same passion, and same happiness or sadness with the loss that you always see with teams. And I've said all along, I think the kids are what I'm concerned with. I've always been concerned with the athletes and the young ladies that play our game, and all kids for that matter, that their mental tenacity is going to be tested because of COVID and all the uncertainty and the frustration and depression of the whole thing. And to provide these guys and these young ladies with an event that allowed them to celebrate the year, I loved it. But to answer Sean's question, and Sean's a great official, and he's one of the reasons the officiating is getting better. More and more people are reffing more and more, and so the officiating is catching up to a degree. I think we do need more young officials in the game, but the officials that did the other night, amazing, and the linesmen. I did TV for 3A, 4A, and the one thing I knew, there were not going to be any blown calls on the line. Good question.
Yep, and the only thing to add to that, I watched all 4 games on the TV I didn't sit there and go, oh my God, how did they make that call or anything like that through all 4 games. There was one touch call that you even said on TV. You said it might have grazed Seaman's finger in that 3A game, but I mean, that was breaking it down bit by bit, and then I mean, you're making that call on the fly. But no, that was the only one, and it wasn't game point. It was in the middle of the set.
Didn't change anything.
Didn't at all.
Like I said, the officials walked in and walked out, and no one could have picked them out of a crowd, and that's when you know you've done a tremendous job. But great job by the officials.
Yep. We're going to go ahead and get into the final season.
I really like it when you get all amped up like that. That whole final season ranking, you even did a little Cobra head. I do like that. I like it when you get excited. But
number 10.
I go Penn. 29-6 and
regional.
Yeah, they had to come through the regional of hell. That's the toughest regional, and I think we put all 4 teams from that regional in the top 10 in the state, and that's pretty impressive. But Penn at 29-6, it's one of those programs that's always going to be in the hunt, and I think that had not that area been so just absolutely flat out, the people up there coaching high school and doing club are doing it right. Because there's some really good volleyball in the north, and Penn is an example.
Yep. Number 9.
Newcastle. A ball handler away from giving Yorktown a fit. A couple of players away from being back in the state championship.
Not in Yorktown sectional?
Well, yeah, but
a little farther.
Yorktown would have beaten them.
Yeah.
Yorktown was the better team. Mabry Schaffmaster kind of sneaks out in the dark of this thing. She's a tremendous talent, maybe one of the most mentally and physically improved players in the state of Indiana. And I wish that more people would have got to see it. They only played 23 matches this year because of COVID and then the early exit in the tournament. But, Newcastle, to be in the top 10 after losing what they lost talent-wise, and you lose a Melanie Schaffmaster, arguably the best player in America.
Correct.
You lose her, and it's going to change things dramatically. But, they're my number 9 team, and a great run for Newcastle. When you get back-to-back state championships, it is what it is, and you got to honor that.
Yep. Number 8.
LaPorte, part of that quad. The
Fab
story. 4. Yeah, the Fab 4. Missing a kid missing a kid. There, we had some COVID incidents in the region. These teams we had talked about had not been hit by any of the COVID stuff. Some of these guys are missing COVID guys. We had a kid have to miss because of prior commitments, and it is what it is. But LaPorte, what a fantastic year! 29-3. Their only losses really were to the people up in their part of the world, and like I said, they made up a part of that Fab 4. Munster doesn't show as big on that stage as they did on Saturday in Worthing if it weren't for the Penns, LaPortes, and Crown Points.
Yep.
And I think that says a lot for that little group. They made each other better, and that's what the game's about.
Number 7.
Crown Point, 30-4. Had a tremendous season, and just like Penn, just like LaPorte, ended a little early. But those guys, as iron sharpens iron, man sharpens man, and if that's the attitude you want to live by, the North did that, and Crown Point, Angie Duncan's as good as anybody in the state coaching wise, and she navigated a tough season. Every coach that made it through the season, whether you lost in sectionals or lost in the state championship or won the state championship, kudos to you for navigating this. It's been a mess the whole way through, and I think that it's going to be a year that everybody looks back on. Everybody said it's a year with an asterisk. I don't believe that. I think it's a year where everybody looks back and says, we learned something about ourselves this year, and that Crown Point team had a great year, and I'm sure they learned.
Yep. All right, number 6.
McCutcheon. I said all year long I thought they were a year away, and they pulled off the upset of the year against HSC. I've got to say that had to be the biggest upset of the year. McCutcheon was battle tested, so they lost 8 games. But at the end of the year, they were rolling. They ran into a very big and physical Munster team that could apply service pressure, handle the ball well enough to exploit a couple things at the net for McCutcheon, and they could slow down Chloe Chicoine. who is arguably the best player in the state. And so this McCutcheon team returns an awful lot. I like this team, and I still do think that they're a year away. But I thought what a marvelous year for the Mavs, and I think that you throw Shondell and that gang back into it with a year's experience. Yeah, I think it's going to be tough, and they're going to be a constant threat to reach the state championships next year.
Yep. All right, top 5.
I go Dwenger at 5. And we had them in that area all year long. Tim Hauser's team, I said all year long I thought was the best team in 3A. And, once they got going, they really they put on a show, but not without a big test from Brebeuf. Brebeuf and Dwenger, if you said those two teams will be back in the state championships, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Dwenger weathered a lot over the last couple years. We've talked to every show about Hauser's, losing to Newcastle in back-to-back years and getting upset by Angola last year. But Fort Wayne Dwenger is as good as anybody, and they got some people on the backside. They're going to help them, help Hudson out. And Hudson's only going to get better. Hudson's a lot like Chicoine in the sense that, she can wreck a game plan in a flat-out hurry when she gets hot. And you saw in that Brebeuf game, she got hot and emotional, and all heck broke loose.
Yep. All right, number 4.
Well, the only team to give Yorktown a push during the stretch, and they had them. Providence had them. We said all year long Hornig was not healthy, and if Hornig got healthy, Hornig was going to be dangerous. Hornig is a first-team All-American Under Armour. Stinson and Shaftmaster were second-team. Mills from HSE, third-team Under Armour All-American, but Hornig is. It would have been a kid that would be playing in the Under Armour All-American match in Orlando if they were still going to have it.
Correct. And
so that tells you a little something about the young lady headed to Purdue. But, she's another one that could change game on a dime. And she does it in a little different manner. She's a little more of a ball control kid and a little more of a shoddy kid. But she's a tremendous little athlete. And, let's face it, any team that Terry Perica coaches, I'm not betting against them down the stretch. And you throw that fan base in and that history in, and that team is tough to handle. They did do exactly what I said at the end of the year. They rose, and they were a tough out for anybody. Yorktown would attest to that.
Number 3.
HSE. HSE, I put HSE there just because of, McCutcheon beats HSE. Munster handles McCutcheon. And so I can't leapfrog HSE back over Munster for that reason. HSE one loss, but I've said all the time, in the state of Indiana, all you have to do is win your last game, and that wasn't the case. Extremely talented team, and a team that will reload. He's losing some things out of the back row that. He's losing a couple kids out of the back row that are game changers. I just mentioned third-team All-American Carly Mills. Taylor Laurie is really a gifted player. But also on the backside, I think he may have next year's best pins. I think that Hobson and Harden are going to be lights out. I think Lovey Wallace will be as improved a player as there is in the state of Indiana. What he decides to do with his offense and his setter, that's coming. He's got to develop a couple of kids in the backcourt, and he's got to make sure that he doesn't waste a perfectly good failure. You look at the season, and it was a failure. You didn't achieve what you wanted to achieve. Don't waste that. I think every day I would taste a little bit of that match and not dwell on the match, but dwell on getting better. And I think if HSE doesn't waste a perfectly good failure, they're going to be right where they want to be next year. They're my number 3.
Yep. And number 2?
Munster. And I like this team. I really enjoyed calling that match. Brett Bowden's really a good coach. He's I watched a little what he was doing. His kids react. But the thing that really impressed me most about Bowden's Munster crew is they never stop fighting. Yorktown kind of broke it even in 4 and was putting a beating on them. It was 13-3.
Yeah.
And Bowden's kids were brawling. Melby's a gamer. Morton's a gamer. Wallace is a gamer. And all the way through. Gronkowitz, all of those kids, they play hard. And Bowdoin is the team is a reflection of their coach, and especially when it comes down to passion, drive, and demeanor. This Munster team deserved to be in the finals, and they deserve to be our number 2 team at the end of the year. As good a team as I've seen, and for them, I hope they're back in the hunt next year.
Number 1?
Yorktown. God, it's poetic. It's small ball at its finest. It's the patience of Job. These guys are so patient and willing to play this long, extended game, which takes tremendous ball control, tremendous mental tenacity, but most of all, great coaching. And I know that Steph Bloom would look at it and say, it's all about the kids. No better coach. I said in the show, maybe the best coach in the state of Indiana, any sport. Tremendous coaching job. This Yorktown team, they did it right. And the neat thing about her formula is she doesn't need stars. She doesn't need big athletes. Her system is built around the kind of personnel she can get every day. They're 60 yards from maybe one of the top ball control clubs in America, and she uses that to her strength. And she's a ball control coach, and so these guys are constantly going to play small ball, and they don't need to get explode with talent to get home. They're just going to beat you with a blue collar, roll up your sleeves work ethic. Number 1 team in the state, Yorktown.
All right, we're going to talk about next year.
Crystal ball, huh?
So we're going to talk a little bit about next year.
Yeah.
So normally we just sign off. We'll see you guys next year. But this year we're going to talk a little bit about who are some people to watch next year. And just give a few. You don't have to go, a crazy amount, but
like a Magic 8 Ball thing.
Yeah.
I tell you what,
who are some of those kids?
If I had a Magic 8 Ball, crystal ball, as you put it, Lauren Harden. It'll be interesting to see her development from where she's at right now to when we start the high school season. That'll be big.
Yeah.
I think she has the potential to be as good as there ever has been. It's when you have that on you. I always talk to Melanie Schaffmaster about it. I mean, that's a great responsibility because it's on you to do the work. I always told Mel that her parents blessed her with great genetics. Now what she becomes is how hard she works. And Lauren Harden has great genetics. She's built like an Olympian. If she takes it upon herself to develop an elite effort mindset, I think she could be as good a player as there is in the state next year, and by the time she's done, as good as we've ever produced in the state of Indiana. Chloe Chacoin is already in that mindset.
Yeah.
She put up some gaudy numbers. She did some things in the high school season that I don't think anybody's ever seen. Where she finishes up and where she ends up is going to be interesting. This kid is a top 5 recruit in the country. It's a kid that's going to end up, wherever she wants, whether it's the Big Ten, whether it's Stanford, wherever she wants. She's that kind of talent. And I think that she's somebody that I really can't wait to see next year because I really want to see these kids get a full club season. Most of these kids are coming in here with a half club season. And when I say club, it's not me promoting club. High school is a 3-month thing. And the great high schools have kids that have 12 months of training.
Correct.
Last year we cut that in half and only had about 6 months, 3 in club, 3 in high school. And the play showed it at times, a little ragged at times. This year, if we can get a full club season in, I think some of these guys like Chacoin are going to be even better, which is scary as hell. Harden developing into who you think she could become, scary as hell. I like Haley Melby. I think Melby's got a big upside. Talking to her after the state championship, she's a very passionate kid, and if she can turn her failure into her fuel, I think this kid could blow up. And every day chase great. Other kids I would look at, there's a little girl coming into Yorktown named Charlotte Vincent. It'll be interesting where she fits into this thing, the Yorktown machine. And she's not your typical Yorktown kid. She's probably a 6'1" setter that has a great deal of potential. Applegate coming into Yorktown, a kid that comes in with a big upside. So we start looking at teams to look at and players to look at. Parika down in Providence. she's going to be a kid to watch. And so I'm excited. I'll be honest.
You got Eganoff and Hudson.
Yeah, Eganoff. Oh God, Eganoff and Hudson. Well, we talked about those guys throughout the show. Yep. Eganoff and Hudson are as good as there is in the state. Yep. And so those two kids, with a good cast, what do they do? I think it's going to be interesting at the end of next year. My thing is I want to whip COVID. I want to whip COVID. And I want to watch just great volleyball all the way through.
Yeah.
And I think these kids are going to be kids people want to see.
Yep. And then we're going to get into the way too early top 5 of 2021.
Way too early top 5, maybe.
So we can give Jason something to talk about for the next.
The way too early top 5. Maybe Randy's way of getting another gift card to the Mouse. The 5 teams when we looked at it, that really jump at me. The number 5 team that when we start the season, number 5 is probably going to be Munster unless we see something over the summer. A lot of returning talent. Very, very impressed with Brett Bowden. And I think he's starting to build a culture there. And I think that North is going to just get better. Those other guys, anybody could have won the North. But I think Munster comes in now with a little more ammunition than before because they've been there.
Yep.
But I like Melby, I like Morton, I like Wallace, and I like Munster as my 5.
Yeah. Got anybody from the South?
I like Providence. I like Providence as my 4. I love the way they finished. As I talked about earlier, they're going to be well set next year. They're always going to be well coached. And as I said all year long,
count them out.
No, you can't count them out. You can't count winners out. And Providence wins, and they're as good as anybody. My 3rd team, if I started the season, would probably be HSE. They got some questions in the back row, and they got some good young ladies there can fill that void. I would probably start him as my number 3 ranked team in the state. To give him, and I think he would appreciate it. I think Jason Young would appreciate that. It's easier to be the hunter than to be the hunted. And I think I put HSE at 3 to start the season. I think they're loaded in the front row. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. Harden and Hobson and the outside are going to be good. I really think Wallace will evolve into an absolute elite middle. He's got to figure out exactly what he wants to do at the setting slot and what he wants to do offensively. He's got to figure out who's going to handle the first contact. But I like them as my number 3.
Yeah.
My number 2, I like McCutcheon. I like Shondell. I like Allie Shondell with another year under her belt. She's going to be, when it's all said and done, probably the most intellectual player in the state. She knows the game as well as anybody and is willing to study more than anybody. I think her vast improvement in the club season is going to be critical. But I think the experience she gained, by extending her season with that HSE win is going to be huge. And Chloe Chacoin, any team that's going to be ranked early is going to have a star.
Oh, yeah.
Chacoin, if she stays healthy and keeps going, is going to be one to remember. My number 1, Yorktown. Yorktown, and here's why I say that. I'm going to start Yorktown at number 1, just like I did Newcastle, because Yorktown, all they did was win 28 straight matches. And they're number 1 until someone beats them. I said this year with Newcastle. Yorktown is number 1 in the state until someone takes them down. I love the formula. I love the chemicals that they mix together, and I love the mad scientist, Steph Bloom. And I also like what's coming in. There are some very talented kids coming into Yorktown that are a little different than what they're used to. And you could look and say, you lose Stinson, you lose Morey. Well, Stinson's important because she can stay on the court, pass, and hit. Morey is just one of the best bros in the state. But behind those guys were Powers and Salih, who were as good as anybody in the state. Behind them were 2 freshmen, Raines and Bell, that are as good as anybody in the state as freshmen. And coming behind them is Applegate, Vester, Benson, Moulton. Just a great Cabrera, just a great crew of kids coming in. And they're all ball handlers. There'll be 6 more DSs on the court for Yorktown. I go Yorktown as my way too early pick to be on my number 1 team in the state to start it.
I like it.
With that,
anything else to add? I know Sean there said thanks for actually having Courtside this year live, and that was fun. So
it was. I think that there's things that we're going to do to upgrade it next year. I think that one of the things we're going to do is kick COVID in the ass and get that out so it's no longer a narrative to our show. But we've got some ideas next year to make it blow up a little bit more. I want to give more time to kids. I watched that state tournament and was so happy to see some of the efforts. And like I said, watching Stinson be so excited and watching a kid like Belangi explode on that stage and, watching Lola Schumacher become a star right there. And then all the way down to watching, speaking to Melby on the way out and seeing what a class act and what a beautiful kid she is. I want to do more to focus on the kids next year and maybe bring more specials to it. But thank you guys, and good luck to you and Godspeed during the club season, and we'll see you next